There's a certain kind of story that takes you to incredibly dangerous worlds where death is around the corner, violence surrounds you, and mysteries run too deep to fathom. And yet, you kind of want to be a part of that world. The danger here calls out to you. You fantasize about being a character in that story, or imagine having similar adventures in real life. Several books and movies are popping up in your head by now, and I want you to think about what is it that separates these stories from a regular adventure or mystery. A lazy answer would be naivety, that they're not a realistic portrayal of adventure, that they skip over the pain and suffering and mainly focus on positive moments of awe and wonder. In this video, I will show you why these stories are far more sophisticated than they appear, and how their childlike lens is precisely why they are closer to the truth of adventure than the ones that try to be gritty and realistic. I call this genre cozy adventure. So, what makes an adventure cozy? Well, firstly, what makes anything cozy? Imagine a dark, freezing city, temperatures hitting a negative 12 degrees, and somewhere in that frozen sprawl lies your home, a warm yellow hearth, you on the sofa, a blanket and hot chocolate. This certainly feels cozy, but change the setting to a beautiful summer day or spring and the feeling is lost. Coziness necessarily requires a harsh and brutal exterior. You need to feel pampered against it, like someone is taking care of you, be it God, the marvels of engineering, or you yourself. You cannot be cozy in comfortable weather. When you take this contrast and extend it across a vast and perilous journey, you get a cozy adventure. These stories have what I call a portable hearth in a dangerous world. It's like your cozy house is moving with you on your journey into the dark wilderness. Only instead of a house, it's a shape-shifting plot device that can be dynamically composed of something mechanical, like a vehicle, or something spiritual, like destiny. It can be a guide, a prophecy, the friends you make along the way, the fortune of heroes, a great power that is sealed within you, or a combination of all these things. Working as its foil is the harsh exterior that makes the adventure possible. The world outside needs to not only be dangerous but also vast, or else the story will not qualify as an adventure. It will only be cozy. The danger in cozy adventures is a fascinating device. It is often death, but it doesn't always need to be a physical threat. It can be a dream that can be shattered, a romance that can stay unfulfilled, the hero's soul that is at risk of corruption, a loss of innocence, etc. Usually, it's several of these at once. Without such larger-than-life stakes, there is no brutal exterior to feel cozy against. This is why MCU movies are not cozy. There are no real stakes. The characters are all protected behind a giant wall of irony and fan service. This is one of the reasons why Scorsese calls them amusement park movies. There are other such fun blockbuster films like Jumanji, the recent Jurassic World films, and much of modern action adventures. Entertaining, yes, but fundamentally consequence-free. They like that house in the summer. Comfortable, not cozy. But then what about serious adventures? Like The Revenant, The Grey, All Is Lost, Game of Thrones. These are extremely moving stories with a lot of stakes, but they don't feel cozy at all. If the comedic spectacle movies take away the brutal exterior, these adventures make you homeless on a winter night. They make you feel exposed. A cozy adventure can deal with stakes of a similar scale, often even bigger, and yet manage to feel cozy. This is where the writer must masterfully weave in the portable hearth right into this vast and dangerous world without making it feel like an out-of-place plot armor. And for that, he must start from a philosophical core. A cozy adventure operates from a fundamentally different metaphysical assumption than regular adventure. While regular adventure assumes a neutral or indifferent universe where good is scarce and hard-won, where the self is fragile and can be corrupted, where victory always carries permanent costs, cozy adventure assumes the universe has benevolent will. Good is abundant and self-renewing. The essential self has an inviolable core that can be tested but never corrupted. Evil is an aberration to be corrected, not an equal cosmic force. This isn't naive optimism, it is a different ontology, a different lens on the world where danger threatens your circumstances but not your essence, where you emerge from trials more yourself rather than diminished. This metaphysical foundation generates a specific promise that the story makes to its audience from the very first moments. Where regular adventure promises encounters with sublime vastness and peril, cozy adventure promises something additional. Meaningful resolution without indulgence in ugliness, and a universe that conspires benevolently toward your transformation. This is the narrative contract, and everything about how the story is told must confirm this promise or the story fails. The failure modes are precise. A cozy adventure fails if it betrays the transformation arc, leaving the character stagnant or broken rather than evolved. It fails if it indulges in sensory ugliness, lingering on brutality, making the suffering pornographic, even when it's done brilliantly. It fails if it abandons narrative care, pulling away the protective elements and leaving the protagonist traumatized without meaning. It fails if it mocks the viewer's investment through ironic distance or subversive gotcha moments that punish trust. And critically, it fails if it ends without meaningful resolution for the protagonist, with anticlimax, arbitrary outcomes, or sacrifice revealed as pointless. These are not the failure modes of regular adventure, which can succeed spectacularly and give us absolute gems despite tragic, brutal, cautionary, and traumatic narratives. Cozy adventure promises something different. Not just that you'll face danger, but that the story will care for you while you do. So, how is this promise established? The story deploys specific techniques in both content and form that signal what kind of contract is being offered. Making us see the perspective of a child or an innocent protagonist immediately activates protective narrative taboos and demands transformation over tragedy. Culturally, we cannot leave a child's arc incomplete, and the child's selective attention justifies focusing on wonder rather than degradation. Warm framing devices like an old man recounting a tale, a book opening, once upon a time, signal that someone trustworthy is giving you this story. Establishing the hope for a fantastical journey or a positive conclusion early on also creates this contract. The introduction of wonder before danger tells you that the story's compass points towards beauty, not ugliness. When pain occurs, and it must occur, as real danger is part of the promise, the story lingers on the meaning, grief, love, determination. It skips over the ugliness, decadence, humiliation, grotesque detail. Islands of rest appear, sometimes literally, like the Vishnu-shaped island in Life of Pi, that prove that the narrative has not forgotten or abandoned the protagonist. The characters themselves are treated with respect, even in failure. When they struggle, the camera doesn't mock, the music remains empathetic, and the possibility of growth stays alive. Well-made cozy adventures for mature audiences have been quietly disappearing from mainstream cinema in recent times. And that's a problem, because the public perception on any given topic is often influenced by the kind of media they are exposed to. And over the last 10 to 15 years, our exposure to larger-than-life stories are mostly coming through irony-poisoned superhero movies or gritty epics that dwell on brutality and cautionary tales. But why do we need cozy adventures? Don't they mostly contain a one-sided optimistic representation of adventure? Yes, they do. And that is precisely why they are important. Because this childlike lens is exactly what brings them closer to the felt experience of real adventurous minds. Explorers, founders, artists, self-made influencers, people who take risks for something greater than mundane life. They don't experience their journey as gritty horror shows or an ironic comedy. They're able to face insurmountable odds because they live with a sense of wonder, with a selective attention towards possibility. Their outlook is life-affirming and biased for action rather than self-preservation. They carry a righteous feeling of being favored by heroic luck, a death accepting commitment to their quest, and self-belief that borders on delusion. Cynicism and gritty brutalism, on the other hand, is the felt experience of the anxious bystander. This is a person explaining why they were smart because they stayed at home. It is the outlook of the unfortunate, the unloved, and miserable side of us, which dwells on past failures and future catastrophes, masking its fears of judgment, failure, and commitment beneath layers of irony and pessimism. Modern media repeatedly catharsizes these parts of the human psyche. And don't get me wrong, they require catharsis. Looking at our darker impulses is essential. But when a generation is primarily raised on irony and gritty brutalism, they run the risk of internalizing damaging lessons. That courage is naive, that trying is foolish, that people in the arena are idiots, and life is a zero-sum game. We desperately need a resurgence of ambitious and optimistic narratives that romanticize great journeys and heroic feats. We need the perspective of the adventurer because that is the perspective that built civilization. We started off as cavemen and today we are on the verge of becoming spacefarers, and every person that played an active role in our journey carried that same delusional optimism. Whenever we dared greatly, the universe did conspire in our favor.